How to think your way into jhana, the Buddha's secret method. One of the basic principles of getting the mind into concentration is that you have to gladden it first. There are lots of ways of doing this. Sometimes just thinking about doing the concentration is enough to get you glad. You have an opportunity to sit here with your eyes closed and with no other responsibilities right now. You don't have to deal with anyone else. If you want, you can totally ignore the Dhamma talk. Just be with your breath. Be with your body. Be with your awareness right here in the present moment. You're not responsible for the past, not responsible for the future. As for your responsibilities right here in the present moment, they're basically for the sake of your happiness. You want to develop good qualities in the mind, the qualities of the path. You can abandon the causes for suffering, and in the course of developing the path, you see those causes more clearly. You can actually see where you're causing stress for yourself, and you don't have to. You have options, you have abilities to think, speak, talk in ways that don't cause any suffering at all, and actually cut through the habits you have for causing yourself suffering. With those thoughts in mind, you can think about your own behavior. You've been observing the precepts. You've been generous. You can settle down with a sense of confidence that this is a good path and you're capable of following it. But as the Buddha said, there are times when the mind is not glad about settling down with the breath. He says either there's a fever in the body that comes when you try to focus on the body, or the mind is sluggish and just doesn't want to go there, or it gets scattered around. As soon as you focus on the breath, it's like trying to balance a needle on top of a ball bearing. It slips off. Or like trying to put two north poles of magnets together. They push each other away. There's something that repels you from the breath, something that repels you from the present moment. In cases like that, he says, you've got to find an inspiring theme. There are lots of alternative things you can think about that can inspire you. The 6 recollections are a standard list. Recollection of the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, recollection of generosity, virtue, and the Devas. They fall into 2 sets. The first 3, of course, have to do with the 3 refuges. The last 3 have to do with reflecting on yourself in a positive way. So tonight, I'd like to talk about the first 3. Recollection of the Buddha. You think about what an amazing person he was. Wise, compassionate, pure. And we're following a Dhamma taught by someone who really knew what he was doing. Look at the story of how he gained awakening. It's amazing how determined he was, but also how circumspect. When he was able to get the mind into good, strong states of formless concentration, and he was told that this was it, this is as far as you could go, he reflected on what he had there. These states of concentration were fabricated. Anything that was fabricated was bound to end at some point. So, it didn't come up to his standards. He wanted something deathless. He subjected himself to extreme austerities to see if they would lead to awakening. The thoroughness with which he observed those austerities was pretty amazing. But also, what was even more amazing was when he finally realized that this was not the path. There can be a lot of pride that develops around those austerities. But he was able to abandon that pride and look around there must be some other way, and he was able to find it. It was his wisdom that enabled him to see how to get beyond suffering, and his compassion in teaching. He taught everyone who was willing to learn, from Devas down to the poorest people. There's one really touching incident concerning an outcast person whose job is to gather up garbage and withered flowers at shrine. He sees the Buddha coming down the road, so he pushes himself against the wall to get out of the way. The Buddha comes closer and closer, and the guy pushes himself even more and more against the wall until he realizes the Buddha actually wants to talk to him. The Buddha teaches him. He's able to gain awakening. And that night, as he's sitting and meditating, the Devas come and bow down to him. So you can think about the Buddha's compassion. He was able to teach people of all kinds, and then his purity. The purity here is basically seeing what needs to be done and actually doing it. Interesting that that would be the definition of purity. You have high standards and you live up to them. If he was going to become Buddha, he had to test his awakening to make sure it was the real thing, so he tested it again and again. You read in the canon about the different standards against which he tested it. What was his knowledge of the Devas? What was his knowledge about suffering? What was his knowledge about different states of being throughout the cosmos? Again and again, it passed the test. So wherever he saw that anything was lacking in his practice, he would make up the lack. So get inspired by the Buddha, that he really was an amazing individual, and that his awakening, you could say, is the most important event in human history. The fact that someone was able to find the way to the end of suffering and able to teach it to others. You can take heart in that. You can also reflect on the Dhamma. The Dhamma is available to all, and it teaches us a path that, as they say, is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. The basic principles are good. As you're following them, you reflect on your actions. You can see the Buddhas not asking you to do anything that's beneath a really high standard, anything that you could be ashamed to do, anything that would harm anybody in any way. There are so many ways in which people try to find happiness that are harmful. And here, the Buddha is saying here, you can find happiness, and it doesn't have to harm anybody. He had seen this himself as he looked at the world. He said everywhere he might look for happiness, he saw that someone already had laid claim to it. If he was going to try to find his happiness there, he'd have to push them away, fight them off. That gave him a sense of real dismay. But then he realized, if he looked inside, there was this huge territory in his heart where nobody else had laid claim, and he could find his happiness there. Then he showed by example that we can all do that. That's what the Dhamma is all about. After all, as the Buddha said, the qualities he developed in the course of his awakening were nothing totally exclusive to him. We all have these qualities within us in a potential form. In some cases, they're pretty obscured, but they're there. He doesn't say that we're basically good by nature, but he does say that have good potentials. We have to watch out, of course, because there are bad potentials as well. So we have to be heedful, but the goodness is there, and the Dhamma focuses on that. That basically gives us power. We find so many ways in the world basically says, okay, the world is a mess, but you can't do anything about it. There are people who have power and they are very jealous of their power. And they're not very compassionate with their power either. They don't really care about anybody else. They are willing to wage war and not care what anybody else thinks. That's the kind of world we live in. If that's all there were in the world, it would be a very dark, dark, dark world. But as Ajahn Fuang said about Ajahn Lee showed him the brightness of life. The Buddha and his Dhamma show us the brightness, that it is possible to train the mind, to find true happiness within. And here are the steps all laid out, so you can allow those thoughts to gladden you. Of course, if the Buddha seems superhuman and hard for you to compare yourself to him, there are the members of the Sangha, especially when you read the Therakatha. And the Therakatha, you realize that not everybody in those days was on the verge of awakening. We read about people like Yasa and Bahia, who happened to hear a very brief teaching by the Buddha and gained awakening. Well, those were the fruits that were already ripe, but there were a lot of fruits in the time of the Buddha that were not very ripe at all. They had to really work hard, yet they were able to do it. Some of them were even suicidal, but they got beyond it. So you learn from them. You learn about the things they thought about that enabled them to lift their spirits, come to their senses. You realize the potential was there inside them. That potential is in you too. It's simply a matter of being willing to follow the Dhamma in accordance with the Dhamma. That's the example set by people of all kinds. Young, old, rich, poor, high caste, low caste. Those things didn't matter. This is what's amazing about the Sangha. In one of the dreams the Buddha had that forecast his awakening, birds of different colors flew toward him. As soon as they came to him, they all became yellow. The symbol there was that people of many different castes who would all come and they would abandon their caste identity. In the case of the monks and the nuns, they would put on the yellow robe. The lay people would wear white. That was pretty radical back in those days because caste was such a huge issue in India. So we look at the Sangha and we can see ourselves there, someplace in the members of the Sangha who eventually did gain awakening. There's a tendency in the biographies of the Ajahns in Thailand to make it sound as though they were ready to become arahants as soon as they came out of the womb. But as you get to know them, you realize they were human beings just like us. They had their problems, they had their difficulties, they had their weaknesses, but they were able to take advantage of their strengths. Again, you can think the thought, they can do it, they're human beings. I'm a human being. If they can do it, so can I. That can lift your spirits. So these are three of the possible inspiring themes that you might use as the Buddha describes it. You can actually get into the first jhana thinking about inspiring things like this. Stay focused on the theme until you find that it gives rise to a sense of well-being. Then, you can drop the theme, come back to the breath, put aside your thoughts, and enter the second jhana. This means that this is a perfectly good alternative to starting out with the breath. So take advantage of the fact that we have these recollections, because what's going to gladden your mind, what's going to gladden somebody else's mind will differ from person to person. For example, thinking about the Buddha. Sometimes you're inspired by his wisdom, sometimes by his compassion, sometimes by his purity. Well, whatever works, because that's the basic principle. That was the principle that motivated the Buddha to begin with. He was going to find what worked. He wasn't going to just listen to inspiring theories. As he said, he taught cross-questioning rather than bombast. Bombast is when the teacher teaches with beautiful words, but doesn't want you to ask questions about, what does this word mean? What does that word mean? He just wants to impress you with fine-sounding language, fine-sounding concepts. But the Buddha's way of teaching was to encourage cross-questioning. If there's something you don't understand, ask. The purpose of this, of course, was to get you to cross-question yourself. When you find yourself holding on to certain ideas, why do you hold on to them? What do you gain? What do they do, these ideas? That's probably one of the more radical parts of the Buddha's awakening. Instead of just holding on to ideas, he asked himself, what do these ideas do? Where do they come from in the mind? What do they lead to? He was able to step back from his old ideas, the ideas that kept him down, the ideas that kept him limited, and then opened his own mind to new possibilities. That's what the Dhamma he taught was all about, opening our minds to new possibilities. And when you see that those new possibilities apply to you as a potential member of the Sangha, here meaning the Sangha of the noble ones, whether you're lay or ordained, that's what can gladden the mind. That's what can inspire you, so that the mind will be willing to settle down and really look into itself with a sense of confidence that it's going to see good things inside when it looks. Three more recollections. There are times when you make up your mind to stay with the breath, and it's easy. The breath is right there. You think of making it long, it goes long. You think of making it short, it goes short. You can adjust it and think of the comfortable breath sensations spreading throughout the body. You find it pleasant. You find it interesting. The mind settles down. There are other times, though, when the mind refuses to settle down. In the words of the suttas, there's a fever in the body that arises when you start focusing on the breath, or there's sluggishness in the mind, or the mind gets scattered. No matter how much you tell it to stay with the breath, it resists. When that happens, then, as the Buddha says, you focus on an inspiring theme, something that will make you happy to be here, confident that you're doing something good, and you're capable of doing something good. The sutta in which he says this doesn't list any specific inspiring themes, but other suttas talk about getting inspired by what are called the Six Recollections. I mentioned the first three the other night: recollection of the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. That's basically to remind you that there is goodness in the world. There are good people in the world. This path that you're on was founded by good people. The three remaining recollections, recollection of generosity, recollection of virtue, recollection of the Devas, are to remind you that you're a good person. You may not be as good as the members of the noble Sangha yet, but you've got some goodness to you. That gives you confidence. You feel good about yourself. You feel good about the path you're on. The purpose of this recollection is to get the mind to have a sense of well-being that it can then take back and apply to the breath and really settle down. So what are those last 3 recollections? When you recollect generosity, you're recollecting your own generosity. And here, we're talking about times when you gave a gift not because you had to, because it was a holiday or somebody's birthday, but because you felt like doing it. It was a totally independent choice on your part. Thinking about that can be nourishing. After all, you had something that you could have used yourself, and that would have been the end of it. But you thought about other people and how they would be pleased or how they would be helped by what you had. And you felt wealthy enough to share. That right there is a refreshing thought. That sense of wealth, that you have enough to share. And the fact that you did think about other people opens up the mind. As Ajahn Lee once said, when you're generous, the whole world becomes your home. The people you share things with become your relatives. This is one of the reasons why, in Thailand, when monks speak of the supporters of the monastery, they use the term Yat Yom, which literally means our relatives. When you give a gift, it breaks down barriers. One of the very first books in the study of anthropology was called Gladden, the gift, which was about gift giving. It pointed out how, when you ask a price for something, you're basically asserting the fact that you're not related to the person you're selling it to. Which is why, when we buy and sell things within the family, it feels really weird. But when you give a gift, you're breaking down that barrier. You're basically saying that this other person is a relative, part of an extended family. It opens your mind, opens your heart. And because the gift is voluntary, you realize that the goodness came from within you. It wasn't forced on you from anyone. This is why there are so many protections of the voluntary nature of giving in the Buddhist culture around giving. You know the story. King Pasenadi asked the Buddha one time, where should a gift be given? He'd asked Brahmans before, and the Brahmans had said, well, give it to Brahmans. The Jain teachers would say, give it to the Jains. So, he was probably expecting the Buddha to say, give to the Sangha? But the Buddha didn't say that. He said, give where you feel inspired, where you feel it will be well used. We have a rule. It comes under Nisagya Pachitya 30, that when a monk is asked, where should this gift be given? You don't tell the donor where to give it. You just say, again, give where you feel inspired to give, where you feel it will be well used, well taken care of. So you don't impose your requests on people. You don't impose your ideas of what would be a good place to give. Let them have the choice. In that way, you respect the dignity of their gift. And it gives you some dignity too, as you're not constantly on the lookout for someone who can support you. That way, you know that the things that come your way are voluntarily given. So when you're a recipient of generosity, of that kind of generosity, it lifts your heart as well. When you give a gift, you're giving with that attitude. This is why we try to protect the voluntary nature of a gift, both in giving and in receiving. Thinking about these things can lift the heart. When the heart is lifted, that fever in the body grows cool. The agitation that scatters your mind around calms down. or the sluggishness of the mind begins to disperse. The same with recollection of virtue. You think of the times when you could have broken the precepts and probably could have gotten away with it, but you realized it was beneath you. When you have that sense of certain actions are beneath you, that lifts the mind. When you can see yourself holding to that principle even when it's difficult, that lifts it even further. I was reading a piece one time by someone, I don't want to mention which branch of Buddhism he came from, but he was saying wisdom around the precepts means knowing when to observe them and when not to observe them. That's not wisdom. That's just the ordinary way of the world. And look at the way of the world. People can find excuses for all kinds of horrible things. But when you have clear-cut principles and you hold by them, that lifts you up above the general way of the world. And it lifts you up above your own defilements. Because you look at the things that would make you want to break the precepts and you realize that you're not a slave to them. That lifts the mind and again gladdens the mind. This is one of the reasons why we keep on practicing generosity, keep on practicing virtue as we progress along the path, because it lifts the mind, puts it in the right mood to be meditating. If you gave a gift once and that was it, it gets hard after a while to get a lot of juice out of that recollection. So you keep on giving, keep on observing the precepts, and that gives buoyancy to your practice. As for recollection of the Devas, this is about you too. It may seem strange thinking about the fact there are Devas, but what the Buddha wants you to think about is 1. What is it that makes a person a Deva? And 2. Do you have those qualities within you? He lists 5 qualities: conviction, virtue, generosity, learning, and discernment. Conviction is in the Buddha's awakening. Generosity and virtue we already know. Learning is learning the Dhamma, having a fund of Dhamma within you. Think of the things that go sloshing around in most people's minds, especially now with the mass media. All kinds of stupid songs and jingles, issues that the media raises as important issues and then disguises other more important issues. Whereas you remember, the Dhamma keeps you focused on this question. What, when you do it, will lead to long-term welfare and happiness? What, when you do it, will lead to long-term harm and suffering? The Dhamma keeps you focused on what you're doing right now and the importance of what you're doing right now. So, having that kind of learning in your mind helps to catch you when you're about to slip off. That's a good treasure to have, and that's one of the qualities that make people into Devas. The final quality is discernment, which the Buddha defines as penetrative knowledge of arising and passing away, leading to the end of suffering. This is not just a matter of watching things coming and going. For that knowledge to be penetrative, you have to see what causes things to arise, what causes them to pass away, and which things, when they arise, are worth continuing with, i.e., skillful, and which things, when they arise, are not, i.e., unskillful. You develop that knowledge or that discernment first with your outside actions, and then it goes into your inside actions, which requires, of course, that you have an understanding of the mind. This is one of the benefits of virtue as well. as you hold to the precepts. The only thing that can make you break a precept is if you intentionally break it. If you break a precept unintentionally, it doesn't count as broken. This, of course, focuses your attention on your intentions. The more you get to know your mind, the easier it is at the moment of death to have some control over what you're going to choose to do. To whatever extent you have any of these 5 qualities, you're going to qualify as a Deva. So, regardless of what other people think of you, you realize that you've got some goodness inside you that doesn't depend on other people recognizing whether the goodness is there or not. You know yourself. You've got generosity. You've got virtue. You've got the qualities of a Deva. Then you learn to make that knowledge sufficient. So regardless of other people's opinions, you know that your goodness doesn't rise and fall with their opinions. Because the opinions of the world, what are they like? You see things changing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The world is totally unreliable. But you've got the Dhamma, and it's a reliable set of standards. This is a point that the Ajahns make again and again, that it stays the same. The Thai phrase is Kong Sen Kong Wa. In other words, what started out as, say, a meter, always stays a meter. It doesn't shrink, it doesn't expand. It stays the same throughout time. Even though the Dhamma teaches about how things change, the basic principles of the Dhamma don't change. Those are the principles by which you're measuring yourself. And they're good standards, good principles. When you live up to them, you can have a clear sense of your own competence, your own worth, your own value. That can give you the confidence you need to settle down and not get discouraged when the mind wanders off a bit. Well, you can bring it right back. If it wanders off again, you bring it back again. This was the point Ajahn Suwat was getting at when he noticed all those meditators at the meditation retreat back east. He said, "These people look awfully grim. Have you noticed?" His explanation was they didn't have enough background in virtue and generosity that they could come to the meditation knowing that 1. What the Buddha taught was good, and 2. They're good people, so that whatever the difficulties, they wouldn't be overwhelmed. So these contemplations are meant to help you develop a sense of joy in the fact that you're practicing here, realizing that you've got the potential to do this well. That should help the mind settle down and get back to work, good work, the work of absorption, the work of discernment. These are all good things. They taste good, and they're good for you.